Hello and welcome to Algebra 1, Chapter 10.3, and today we're discussing radical equations. So we're going to jump right into an example here. We have an object that was dropped from an unknown height and it reached the ground in 5 seconds. And we have an equation, t equals the square root of h over 4, to solve for the height. Well, so if we look at what they gave us time. So this would be 5 equals the square root of h over 4, and we need to solve for h. So the biggest thing to remember on all of these examples is to get the radical by itself. Okay? So to do that, we need to get rid of the 4. Okay, so to get rid of a 4, it's divided by 4, we're going to times by 4. 4 on top, 4 on bottom cancels. We get 20 equals the square root of h. And then how do we get rid of a square root? We square. Okay, and the square root of h squared is just h, and the square root of 20, or sorry, not the square root, 20 squared is 400, and we don't know what we're measuring in, so let's just call it 400 units. Since we're not sure if we're in feet or inches, we don't know. There we go. Alright, so main thing, get the radical by itself. So this plus 8 is not a part of the radical. So the first thing you have to do, subtract that 8. We have to get that radical by itself. Equals 7. Now how do you get rid of the square root? We square it both sides. When you square, you always square sides. Keep that in mind. We square sides. Alright, there we go. And add 3. X equals 52. By the way, I want to just bring up one thing real quick. You know, the fact that I say when we square sides, this is why from the beginning I don't want to square. Because if I square sides, okay, that gets squared, but then this gets squared. And then that becomes x minus 3 plus 8 times the square root of x minus 3 plus 8 equals 225. And you have to FOIL that out, and you're still going to have a square root when you're done. And so if our whole goal is to get rid of the square root, then this doesn't do us any good, because once you FOIL this, and if you want to see it, it's 8 square root of x minus 3. Actually, that's outside. Let me start with first. First would be x minus 3, because you would take that times itself and the square root would go away, plus 8 square root of x minus 3, plus 8 square root of x minus 3, plus 64, right? And so we would end up then with x plus 61 plus 16 square root of x minus 3. And so we still have a square root, and we're nowhere near solving for x, because now we have x's in 2 places. Okay? You really do not want to do it that way. You want to get the square root by itself and then square to get rid of it. So let's try that again. Square root by itself means we have to do what? We have to add 2 to both sides. Square root of x minus 3 equals 6. And now I can get rid of the square root. I'm going to square both sides. X minus 3 equals 36. And get x by itself. 39. Notice we're not adding plus or minus anywhere. That's for when you're solving for 2 answers. These are only going to have 1 answer. There's not an x squared anywhere. Okay, what's our first step? Subtract 4 to get the to get the square root by itself. Square root of x plus 1 equals 10. Next step, Square both sides. X plus 1 equals 100 minus 1. X equals 99. By the way, you can check these. Just put 99 back in for x. 99 plus 1 is 100. The square root of 100 is 10. 10 plus 4 is 14. It checks. Okay. Square root is already by itself, so we're going to start by squaring both sides. That gives us 2 minus y equals y squared. What you have now is a quadratic. Alright, so you either need to solve by factoring, completing the square, or quadratic formula. Most of those ways you want it equal to 0, so we're going to set this equal to 0, and you really probably want your leading coefficient, which is going to be your y squared, to be positive. So let's move everything then to the right. So those cancel. 0 equals y squared plus y minus 2. So let's see if this factors here. AC method, 1 times 2 is 2, or I should say negative 2. And factors a negative 2 that make positive 1 if we do 2 and negative 1. So y squared minus 1 plus, 1y plus 2y minus 2. Y times y minus 1 plus 2 times y minus 1. Took out all that. Y minus 1 times y plus 2 equals 0. Set both factors equal to 0. And we get y equals 1 and negative 2. Okay. Now we should bring up, since we're talking about a square root here, you should always check your answers. And so let's check these. And so if we check 1, you get 2 minus 1 equals 1, okay? So this is the square root of 1. Square root of 1 is 1, so that one works. If we check negative 2, we're going to get 4. We're going to get 2 equals negative 2. That does not work, okay? That's called an extraneous solution. So negative 2 is not a solution, okay? And you really have to check it when you're dealing with negatives and square roots, because you can't have a negative under a square root and you can't have a square root equal to a negative. So this one actually only has one answer. Alright, one more situation to look at. And square root's by itself, so we're going to go ahead and square both sides. So here's the deal. When you square that left-hand side, it becomes a binomial squared, and you're going to have to FOIL it. Okay? So that's just not x squared minus 9. You have to FOIL this out. This is x squared minus 3x plus 9. So we're looking at x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals x minus 1. So again, we have a quadratic. You're going to want to put it all on one side and set it equal to 0. Alright, and we're going to try to factor it. I'm going to do a guess and check this time. Factors of 10, 2 and 5, and I can make 7 out of 2 and 5. 2 and 5. And for it to be a positive 10, my signs have to be the same. They have to multiply to be a positive. The signs have to be the same. But they're adding to be a negative 7, so they both have to be minuses. And if you FOIL that out, you'll see that we get a negative 7 in the middle and a positive 10 at the end. Set both of those equal to 0. And we get a positive 2 and a positive 5. And we're still going to check, mostly because of this whole minus 3 thing going on over here. So if we check 2, okay, so remember I have not checked anything there. All I did was write out the problem. So we're going to work it out. This is negative 1 equals the square root of 1. That does not look like it works, so 2 is not an answer. And you could end up with neither of them working, in which case it would just be no solution. This one looks like it's going to work. There we go. So again, we only have one answer. That's our answer. All right, there's 10-3. Let me know if you have any questions, and if not, I will see you in class next time. Have a great day.